Hi, I'm Craig Kirsner, President of Stewart Estate Planning Wealth Advisors, and what we're going to talk about today is the elimination of the Stretch IRA. The elimination of the Stretch IRA and 7 strategies you might want to consider using. So first of all, what is the Stretch IRA? Up until this year, 2020, it used to be when you left your children your IRA after you pass away, they could stretch that IRA out over their lifetime. Okay, so if they had a 40-year life expectancy, they could take a little bit of money out for the next 40 years, and that was a great tax deferral tool. Well, the fact is, the government has quite a large amount of debt, which you're probably aware of. For example, if you go to usdebtclock.org, the website, you can see the U.S. government has national debt right now, if you can see that, is $23 trillion with a T. That's our current debt, and climbing literally by the second. So the government wants to raise more tax revenue, and they've done it by, we think they'll be able to raise revenue by eliminating the Stretch IRA. So what the new rule, they've done a new law called the Secure Act that started January 1st, 2020, and the new rule is when you leave your IRA to your child, instead of having their entire lifetime to take RMDs for their life, they have to remove the entire IRA in only 10 years. Okay, so I call this the elimination of the Stretch IRA because now your heirs only have a 10-year window to completely empty that IRA where they used to have a much longer period of time. So I wrote an article on Kiplinger. If you go to kiplinger.com, you can search for my name, Craig Kirsner, and you can read the article. But this is a summary of what that article says, the 7 strategies that I think you should use now. Now again, I'm not an accountant or an attorney, so please be sure to consult with your attorney or accountant, but based on my research and my 25 years license in this business, these are the strategies that you could look at to deal with this situation. Why did the government make a 10-year rule? 3 main reasons. You used to be able to compound your money, compound interest over a long period of time in an IRA, and Albert Einstein once said compound interest is the most powerful force in the universe. So the compounding is going to be gone because now they only have 10 years of growth after you pass away to deal with the IRA and drain it. That's one. Number 2, the government wants you to take out more money faster from the IRA so they can get their tax revenue faster. So they're going to get tax revenue sooner. And then the third thing I talk about in the seminar, in my article, is that your heirs might have to even pay higher taxes for a number of different reasons, which we're going to talk about today. Here are some strategies that you might want to consider because let me explain why there's a real potential problem if you have a sizable IRA. Okay, let's say if you're leaving an individual $500,000 or $1 million or more in an IRA, a regular IRA, then your heirs might have some tax challenges. So let's talk about why that is. Let's say, for example, you leave a $1 million IRA to your son. Okay, $1 million, for example, right? This is a hypothetical example. You leave $1 million, and let's say, so obviously, if you have $1 million, they have to take all that million out over just a 10-year period after you pass away. But the $1 million hopefully will grow during that 10-year period. So let's assume you're going to earn 5% of your returns. Just made up number, but I like round numbers, right? So at 5%, that means you'll earn $50,000 in income, roughly, right? At 5%. So if your heirs are going to take all this IRA money out over 10 years, they're going to have to take out the $100,000 of principal, and then they're going to have to take out the $50,000 of interest. So that means year 1, they have to take out $150,000 a year $150,000 a year between the interest and the principal so that it's empty in 10 years. Now obviously as the principal goes down, the income might go down if is possible, right? So let's assume it's an average of $130,000 a year of income for that 10-year period on average, just as an estimate, right? So what that means is your son is going to have to take out roughly $130,000 a year of taxable income for 10 years on top of any income he might be earning, on top of any other assets you left to him, could be taxable income to him as well. So it's quite possible if you have a sizable IRA that your son might be in a higher tax bracket, possibly. And of course, that's assuming taxes don't go higher in the future. Many people feel that with the way the debt is, that taxes probably will be higher in the future. Historically, right now in 2020, we're in one of the lowest tax brackets we've seen in quite some time. So the point is that if you are concerned about higher taxes and you're concerned about this high level of income that your son will have to experience, enjoy, but also pay taxes on, he might end up paying higher taxes than you might possibly, right? So, we want to deal with that proactively. And so we'll talk about some 7 strategies to deal with that proactively. So number 1, trust, okay? See, you want to review your trust language with your attorney, okay? Your trust, okay? Your revocable trust, because most of my clients are millionaires, and most of my clients have children and grandchildren that they love. So what we do is my attorneys, the attorneys that we work with, set up dynasty type trusts. So trusts that have the dynasty language, and essentially what it means is when you leave your money to your son in the type of trust that my attorneys set up, the ones we work with as a team, that they're designed to help protect those assets against divorces, lawsuits, creditor claims. So they're designed to be an asset-protected trust to help the asset protection, which is important to my clients, to protect their assets from future divorces, potential lawsuits, creditor claims. And then they're also designed to help keep those assets in your family bloodline, which means that after your son passes away, the money doesn't go to the spouse. We call them the outlaw at that point, not the in-law. The money only goes to your grandchildren, his children, in protected trust for your grandchildren. So again, help to be divorce and lawsuit and creditor protected for your grandchildren. So it's a multi-generation trust, which is typically what our clients want. So the point is that the right way to do it, according to my attorneys and accountants, is that you should leave that $1 million IRA to your trust, okay? Because if you leave the IRA directly to your son, then it's not protected anymore. There's no asset protection when it's an inherited IRA. So what's ideal is to leave the IRA to your revocable dynasty trust, so that it adds that, the protection around the IRA to protect it and keep it in the bloodline. That's typically important to my clients. Now, your trust might have certain type of language. It's called conduit language, right? Conduit language. If it has conduit language, it might not give your son the flexibility they might need to deal with the IRA properly, okay? And again, talk to your attorney, but big picture, what my attorneys that we deal with recommend is making it a see-through trust. So what you want to do is, instead of a conduit, you want to give them the right to say a conduit, make it a conduit or an accumulation trust, okay? A conduit or an accumulation trust, right? So either a conduit or accumulation. You want to give your heirs the ability to accumulate the assets and keep it in the trust if it makes sense, instead of forcing them to make the distribution to your son. Now you're thinking, why might I want to do that? Because I've heard, you might have heard, which is true, that if you leave income in a trust, it pays potentially higher income taxes than an individual would, which is true. So your son, who's the trustee, or whoever the trustee is, does have the right to give money to your trust, from your trust to your son, and let your son pay the income tax, which could be tax favorable. However, there might be reasons for them to leave that money in the trust. For example, if they're going through a messy divorce, they don't necessarily, might not want to take money out of the trust because they could lose that money to that divorcing wife, or if they have a lawsuit against them, they wouldn't want to have that money coming out exposed to potential creditors. So if you give them the ability to have it as an accumulation trust, they can decide to keep that money within the trust and still have it be an IRA, but have it be a protected IRA. So that's a big deal, to review your trust strategy with your attorney. Make sure you have a competent estate planning specialist attorney. If you need one, we can refer you to one. So that's a big deal. Roth IRA conversions. So, yeah, as I was saying, it used to be you could leave your money to your son. He could stretch it out over his lifetime. However, now your son has to remove it over only 10 years. So for example, if you're, let's say, 70, okay? And let's assume your life expectancy, you've got 20 years to live, for example, right? The reason you might want to do a Roth IRA conversion, I say, and work with your accountant obviously, are many reasons. Number one, the big picture is that if you were a farmer, would you rather pay income taxes on the penny seeds when they're this small, or on the 8-foot tall wheat after it's fully grown? Clearly, you'd rather pay taxes on the pennies, not the dollars, right? That's common sense. So if you believe your IRA is going to grow over time, choosing to pay taxes now versus paying taxes later when it could be a larger asset, would make sense in that kind of a example, right? So that's number one. But number two is, if you choose to do partial Roth IRA conversions and you're 70 and you live 20 years, then you could take out a little bit each year, pay taxes. Nobody likes to pay taxes, obviously, especially the way the government spends our money. Just kidding. But you know what I mean. But this is a game changer as far as planning, right? So it used to be, so the plan would be, if you live 20 years and start doing partial Roth IRA conversions for that 20-year period, and then your son has 10 more years to take the money out, over that another 10 years, you're essentially doing a 30-year stretch IRA and choosing to pay taxes over 30 years versus potentially waiting for 20 years and then having your son take out a lot of potential income over 10 years and paying maybe a lot higher taxes, especially if income taxes are going to go up in the future, potentially, right? So that's one reason why you should definitely start looking at partial Roth IRA conversions with your accountant. That's a big deal. One thing about Roth, though, many people, just so you're clear, the rules about a Roth IRA is that when you leave that Roth IRA to your child, he can leave it in that trust that we talked about, and he can leave it in the trust for 10 years, okay? But at the end of the 10th year, the rule with the Roth IRA is they have to take all the money out of the Roth IRA at the end, that 10th year. Okay, so he still has 10 years, but they have 10 years of tax-free growth, and at the end of the 10th year, they can take all the money out of the Roth, leave it in the trust, ideally, if they want to have it protected. And so that's a solution, just to let you know how Roth IRAs work. That's number two, Roth IRA conversions. One last point is, if you're going to convert to Roth and you're going to pay tax, it's ideal to pay tax from non-IRA assets and not your IRA, because you want that full amount growing tax-free forever. That's the point of a Roth IRA. So pay your taxes not from the IRA, from non-IRA assets, which is ideal. One other last point is, let's say you're a husband and a wife, for example, a married couple, as many of my clients are, and the first spouse passes away, and if the second spouse needs money after the first spouse passes away, because they will have lower income potentially, the Social Security, one Social Security drops when a spouse dies, a pension might stop, a single taxpayer might pay higher taxes than the two taxpayers. So that surviving spouse can use that Roth IRA, if they need it, to get some tax-free money to live on. So there is an advantage for the surviving spouse to have tax-free money. And then if they don't use it, that money just goes to your son in the trust, right? So a lot of benefits to Roth. You never had to think about this stuff before, really, but but now with the elimination of the Stretch IRA, it's really a game changer, so you might want to look at partial Roth IRA conversions. Okay, strategy number 3 is what the attorneys call multi-generation spray trusts. Okay, multi-generation spray trusts. Multi-generation spray trusts, okay? So what that means is that when you leave your assets to your trust, your revocable trust, let's say you have one child, but he has 3 children of his own. Instead of the $1 million being taxed, the income being taxed just for your son, on your son's tax return, if you set up the language where your son can actually pass the income to his 3 children and spread the taxes over 4 tax returns, that could potentially save you money using a multi-generation spray trust to spread the income tax over 4 tax returns instead of just 1. And if you have 12 beneficiaries, with children and grandchildren, they might be able to spread it out amongst 12 tax returns to really try to minimize the taxes, be tax efficient as much as possible. So you can work with your attorney to set up multi-generation spray trusts. Okay, strategy number 4 is disclaiming the IRA for the spouse, okay? I'm not a big fan of this strategy. Let's say you're a husband and a wife, and the husband has $1 million IRA, and he leaves the $1 million to his wife, okay? The wife can say, you know what, I only need $500,000 of that IRA, so I'll stretch out over my lifetime the $500,000, regular, normal RMD rules, required minimum distribution rules. However, I'm going to disclaim $500,000 and give it to my children right now so that they can start that 10-year process and they can have a smaller number to spread out the taxes, that $500,000 over 10 years. So that way it's kind of like you're spreading out the taxes over more tax returns. So that's good for tax planning, but I'm not a big fan of that personally, because what if one day that wife needs that $500,000 back? If they run out of money, God forbid, or something like that, it would be a really awkward conversation to have to go back to their children and say, listen, I need that money back. And, it's not that it's not possible, and I'm sure they could do it, but it's just not a place typically my spouses want to be in. They want to be as, secure as possible in their financial, well-being and their thought process around that kind of situation. So the point is, I'm not a big fan of that, but it's an option. You leave your IRA, this is option number 5, you can leave your IRA to charity, okay? So this is another option, you can leave your IRA to charity. There are ways to do it with what are called charitable remainder trusts, which again, you can talk to your attorney or accountant to see how that works, a charitable remainder trust. But in a nutshell, what happens is your beneficiaries will receive an income while they're alive or for a period of time, usually up to 20 years, and then whatever's left in that IRA will go to the charity, if you're charitably inclined. So your children will get income, they won't have to pay that big tax, and ultimately the charity will benefit, and your children, and less taxes owed. So again, that's another strategy. If you're charitably inclined, you might want to look at a charitable remainder trust. Number 6. This is strategy number 6. Okay. Number 6 is this. Okay, 6. Let's say you have the plan that you're going to start stretching that IRA. You're age 70, and your plan is to stretch that big IRA out over 20 years to do Roth IRA conversions, and then your heirs will have another 10 years after that. However, what if you don't make it 20 years? Even though that's your normal life expectancy, what if you die in 5 years or 7 years, God forbid? Then your heirs don't have that 30-year plan, and now it's just a 15-year plan, let's say. So one way you could hedge your bet is you can buy a life insurance policy. Life insurance, okay? So If you're of average health, that you can qualify for life insurance at a favorable rate, then you could buy a life insurance policy so that if you died early, your family would get a very large, big tax-free benefit of life insurance, which is tax-free to your heirs, and that tax-free life insurance benefit can help pay for those income taxes that would be owed on the IRA. So that's that. And then last strategy is to choose low-tax states for your IRA trust, okay? So what this means is this. You live in Florida. I'm in Florida, Boca Raton area, South Florida, and Florida is one of the better states to retire in for a number of different reasons besides the nice winters. But also, the fact is we don't have a state income tax. And there are many states, I think about 15 or so, that have state income taxes. So let's say your son lives in New York City, for example, and let's say there's 15% state income taxes in New York, or whatever the number is, right? I'm from New York, but I haven't lived there for a while. But let's just say it's 15%, okay? And let's say that you leave him this big IRA, and between his income and the IRA income and the other income he's earning from your trust, let's say that he's in not only the 37% tax bracket, which is the highest tax bracket, but then he might have to pay an extra 15% in New York taxes as well on that income. So you might lose 50% or more just to income taxes, if that's the case, in your case, right? So Florida has no state income tax, right? So what that means is that you can, if you're a Florida domicile, you can set up your Florida trust, and then when you die, that your heirs can potentially leave it as a Florida-based trust. So if they have to work with their accountant and their attorney. And again, it doesn't matter if it's a pension plan, a 401k, an IRA, a KEO, any type, or a 403b if you're a teacher, any type of tax-deductible plan that you leave ultimately to a child does fall under that, or a Roth IRA does fall under that 10-year window where they have to take all the money out in 10 years. Clearly, they can wait until the last day of the 10th year and pay taxes on a potentially giant number, but that might be even worse tax-wise. We don't know, right? So that's the bottom line, is that you want to deal proactively with this stuff. You want to have a fiduciary financial advisor like myself as a fiduciary that focuses on retirement planning to help make some big picture decisions that could potentially save you tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of income taxes in the future by making these proactive choices now that, again, you never had to think about, but now you do. So if you're in the Boca Raton or Fort Lauderdale area, we do dinner workshops at Ruth's Chris Steakhouse and Abe and Louie's Steakhouse. So if you want to come to one of our upcoming dinner workshops with the attorney who'll be speaking about dynasty estate planning, and myself who'll be talking about advanced IRA and retirement planning, I'd be happy to have you come to one of our dinner workshops. And then if you're interested in meeting with me after that to find out more personal information about you so we can figure out if we're a good fit to work together, then we'd be happy to give you a second opinion on where you are as far as how much risk you have in your retirement plan, how much your fees are, including any hidden fees you might be paying, and how much you might lose in the next downturn. These are things that our software and can help us figure out to make sure that we create a plan designed based on your goals and needs, designed to preserve and protect your wealth and leave a legacy. So it's been a real pleasure chatting with you. I hope this video was useful for you. Please feel free to call us at any time, 1-800-807-5558, 1-800-807-5558. Craig Kirsner, President, Stewart Estate Planning Wealth Advisors. Thank you for your time.